Welcome to another episode of The Profile. I'm Gary Dunn, and in the hot seat tonight, a man who can talk under wet cement, believe me. A young Howie Johnstone. How are you, Mr. Johnstone?
Great to meet you, Gary. Excellent.
Thanks for coming in.
No worries.
Really nice to have you here.
It's just down the road after all.
Okay, I'm going to start with where were you born?
Bonnie, Scotland.
Whereabouts?
Edinburgh, Bonnie, Scotland, 1957 in Elsie Inglis Hospital.
Wow.
As a matter of fact. Yeah, about 9 k's from the little town of Macmurray, which was named when Robert the Bruce and his soldiers were there, and they sort of going up to Culloden to get their ass kicked, as it turned out. But and they stopped in this little place, and you know, one of the head dudes sort of said, "Look, guys, you have to Macmurray tonight because tomorrow you might be dead." So they named it Macmurray, and that's where I'm from, Macmurray.
Wow.
About 9 k's from Edinburgh.
Fantastic story. So, what instruments do you play, Howie?
Well, I'm a drummer. That's me.
I asked you what instruments do you play.
Right. Very good. Very good. Yeah, I'm a drummer, and I also play guitar and bass and keyboards and a bit of everything, really. You know, just dabble in stuff because I'm not really good at any of them, but I'm here after 45 years.
You're pretty good on the drums, mate.
Oh, thanks, mate. Thanks a lot.
So, there was a light bulb moment for you, obviously, why you're here and why you've been contributing and playing drums. What was that moment? Can you remember?
What, as a muso? Or?
As a young person, what made you pick up the drums? What made you think I'm going to do this?
Well, I'd say definitely my brother Johnny, because Johnny was a drummer. When we came here from Scotland in '64, so I was like 6.5. My other brother Chris, he's about 10. Johnny was 13. Well, Johnny was a drummer. He was a member of the Beatles fan club.
Yeah.
Of course, he moved on. He was now into the Stones.
Yeah.
He was 13. He had his own little band in Scotland. So suddenly us all coming out on the £10 tourist sort of thing to come to Australia, this new country.
Same.
The Johnstones are coming out here. You know what it's like. But unfortunately, when we went to get our inoculations, it turned out that my dad had something wrong with his blood. They called him back in and said, you know, unfortunately, Mr. Johnstone, you're not going to be going to Australia because you've got non-Hodgkin's lymphoma and you're going to be dead within maybe 6 months. So they told my mum. My dad was 51 at that time, 1963. My mum was 41. So, you know, so suddenly my mum had to not go to Australia. She had to nurse my dad basically until he died. But then I guess a call to my uncle who was in Australia with my auntie. They'd been here about 10 months. And back in those days, it probably would have been a trunk call, probably would have taken a week to get through. But my uncle who was my mother's brother, and he was the oldest in the family, he sort of said, "Look, Chrissy, I know you've lost John and you'd probably be better off feeling you're going to stay in Scotland, you know, family and that around there." But he's saying, "Look, the boys, this is a great country, you should still come out." So as a widow, 41 years old, the three of us, we left 4 below zero in Scotland and arrived in Perth at 107 Fahrenheit. And I couldn't believe it when they opened the door, you know. I thought, like, someone's parked a truck there with a heater on or something. All us Scots are in the plane, you know, like big coats and scarves, and open the door and it's like, geez, I thought India when we stopped in New Delhi was hot. At least this place doesn't smell, but it's hotter. Yeah. So we got out, walked across the tarmac. In 1964, same year as the Beatles, different plane, but we walked across the tarmac, and in those days, Perth little international airport, they had a pond there and they had black swans. And I said to my mum, "See, they're, you know, because I've only ever seen a white swan." I said, "Look, they're black, they're burnt from the sun." She said, "Shut up, just keep walking," you know. So that was my introduction to Australia. It was 107 degrees on a very, very hot day, and I thought, this must just be one day out of you know, this doesn't happen normally, but then I found out that it happens for about 40, 50 days every year. It's called summer in Australia. You can't get away from that Australian heat. It'll penetrate your body from your nose down to your feet.
And you know that.
No escape from the Australian heat. Written by my good friend Dave Warner.
Yeah. Okay, let's talk about your first band. It was with Dave Warner, wasn't it?
Yeah,
74.
well, with Dave, I mean, Dave was sort of, my brother Johnny, as I said, was, you know, Johnny was hip to everything. He was into the, you know, the best music, the best clothes, the best everything. And of course, a younger Dave Warner, because Johnny's a bit older than all of us, but Johnny was a bit of a mentor to Dave, and Dave would ask him questions, and, you know, a bit like the, you know, the seeing sort of like someone with a blues album under their arm on the bus, and then they got talking, and Johnny and Dave used to talk a lot about music and stuff like that, and Dave wanted Johnny to play in his band, but by that stage Johnny had got engaged and he'd sort of given music a sort of a bit of a miss, but he said, oh look, man, you know Ali, he's into drums, so, oh right, so Dave, if anyone had worked with Dave in those days, it's like, come along, So we actually rehearsed this show that Dave's idea was this thing, the suburbs and how he was going to talk about, where he's from and this music from overseas. And that's all great, but, it's irrelevant to us. We live in Australia, you know what I mean? Like it was quite original and quite incredible. So he had this concept. So he got a few of us together and we put this show on at the Octagon at the WA Uni, and it was a big hit. But Dave's next thing was he was going to London because, he's off on his, not gap year, but just, I suppose, discovering the world. So with this concept, he went to England and he ended up recording some of those songs that we'd done on that show at the Octagon. And when he came back about a year later after his trip, he got in touch again and said, look, I'm putting this band together. And that band ended up being the From the Suburbs band, which ended up, doing lots of gigs around Perth and then touring, Australia quite a few times. And I did 4 albums with Dave, the first of which went gold. And, that was 40 years. Actually, it's the 40-year anniversary of Mugs Game this year.
Yeah.
So, so that was, that was the start of that, I suppose.
So that was 74, so 75 before we get to your...
Well, 74 was the Octagon show. So in between that, 74, then I moved
Sherrif.
on. I get back to Dave at 78. But Sherrif I formed with another contact from my brother, Dave Goodwin, who played bass with Bernie Lynch in a little Hobbit sort of folk band thing that they had. Well, Bernie Lynch from the Eurogliders, we went on to do the Eurogliders. Bernie was writing a lot of stuff, a lot of songs, and they weren't sort of fitting into this folk thing. They were more like original light rock, if you like. So he wanted to get another band together, and Dave worked at the Fire Brigade, and my brother worked next door at the Public Trust, and he knew Johnny was a drummer, and he said, we want you to join this band. Johnny said, look, I've given up a few years ago now, but me brother Ali plays drums. And
so you say Ali?
Yeah, well, Ali, because I couldn't pronounce my L's very well when I come out here from Scotland, and when I'd lost my dad, he died back in Scotland, so people used to come around to the Johnstones and take us out to the National Park, John Forest National Park or Yarloop, to show us a bit of Australia, us new white Scottish kids in the car, in the Falcon station wagon. And I remember Mr. Richardson sitting in the front driving along to John Forest National Park going, right, so, you got your mates, he's got his son Robbie and his daughter Christine and his Mrs. Beryl. And he's driving, he's going, so what's your name? Looking at me brother, and my brother goes, Christopher. We'll call you Chris. And he goes, and what about you? And he looks at me, and I'm thinking, shit, there's a big bloke in the front seat, and I'm a little kid. And I said, Ali. They call me Ali, and he's going, Howie, because I couldn't pronounce my L's. It sounded like Howie. And he goes in his Australian vernacular, Howie, how'd you get Howie out of Alistair? And I thought, it's not bloody Howie, you idiot, it's Alistair. But I was only 6 and I couldn't say that. So I just sort of looked at my brother and he's going, we'll call you Howie then. And I looked at my brother and he's going, I'm not saying nothing. So to this day, it's stuck.
Wow.
So Howie is actually Ali.
Much better than Alistair, I think, anyway, if you want my opinion. But anyway.
Alistair is a beautiful name, as you know.
So 77.
77.
Bag of Bones.
Yeah, well, what happened is Sherrif with Bernie Lynch, right? Yep. So, we did some stuff, like all original stuff. We used to get our gigs from Des Jose at the Rock Exchange, as you probably got many of those. And, it was great. You'd do 5 gigs a week and probably come out with $40 each or something. Yes. But it was great because we loved it, and we do what we loved. But when that band finally, ended up going to a musical difference, I suppose, forced us apart. So I then wanted to take a break. I went up to Derby, worked up there for 9 months at the Spinifex Hotel, as far away from Perth and music as I could get. And then I started to hang out to play. So I came back down, found the guitarist that I'd got to join Sherrif, and that guitarist happened to be Paul Felton.
Wow.
So I found Paul and I decided we were going to put a blues band together because I wanted to play 6 nights a week and I wanted to play dance music. Forget this original stuff. I just want to play dance music and play blues. So Paul and I formed Bag of Bones Blues Band, and then that sort of took it up to about 1978, where I was headhunted by Dave Warner and his guitarist to come and join his band because he needed a drummer.
Yeah.
And because he'd worked with me back on that show in '74, he knew what I as a player, and so I knocked him back twice because even though he was offering all this money to. They hadn't earned less than $1,500 a week each for the last 18 months. But I said to my girlfriend at the time, look, if he's earning that, I can do that with this band, But my girlfriend said, look, Bag of Bones is a great band. It's fantastic. You play every night. You got heaps of people. But Warner's writing his own stuff. He's about to tour the Eastern States. He's about to record. And he's offering you the gig and you're saying, no, I just don't believe it. I'm thinking, you're my girlfriend. You're supposed to be on my side. But after thinking about it, I thought, she's right. So within 6 weeks, and Paul Felton, the last words he said when I said I was thinking of joining Warner's band, he said, if you join Warner's band, I'll kick your ass. And because Paul was a bit older than me, and I thought, no one kicks my ass. So I said, well, mate, watch me walking, because I'm walking out the door. So 6 weeks later, I was already in the Eastern States doing a tour with Dave and recorded the first album that went gold, and I was on Countdown a couple of weeks later, so it's like, I've made it. This is great. I like this. So so that was the start of working with Dave, and we did quite a few tours up and down the East Coast, up to Queensland, Sydney, Melbourne, Adelaide. For a couple of years at least there, maybe 2.5, 3 years, and when I came back, a bit of downtime because the band would be off the road, I joined the Elks, actually, a great blues band from Perth, and did a tour over east with them and stayed with them for about 6 months until I got seconded back into the suburbs again.
Because a friend of mine, Vinnie Creer, played with Elks
Vinnie
as well.
Creer,
was that after?
Yeah, he was after me.
Yeah,
Vinnie came, I've got a picture, or I had a picture and it got burnt in the fire 3 years ago, 3 months and 1 day ago. Not that I'm counting. But Vinnie Creer, he was after me, but he actually came to what we call the Last Supper, and we were in Caloundra in Queensland. David Zampatti, who was the Elks manager, his folks had a house up there, a bit of a beach house thing, and we were up there and we had what we called the Last Supper, and it was me having a spaghetti bolognese between the whole Elks and the two drummers, me and Vinnie, because Vinnie was taking my spot because I was going back to join Warner in Perth, and Vinnie came up to Queensland, so we had this Last Supper, the boys, spaghetti bolognese, and me handing.
Because Howie was in that band then too, wasn't he?
Howie Shawcross, yeah. And Howard, actually after, I guess. Where are we up to? We're up
well,
to...
you keep going.
Well, we're up to the Elks and stuff. I did that, and then I came back and worked more with Warner, and recorded more albums with him and stuff. And we were always sort of doing something. But I guess that had run out of steam probably by the mid '80s. So when we basically came back to Perth, Dave's a very driven person, a very hard working. He's probably the hardest working musician person I've ever worked with as a musician. He's always got ideas. He's a writer now. He's written 9 or 10 fantastic books. It had some great response from them. But he's a very very driven guy. I mean, when the teachers asked him when he was about 8, what do you want to do? I'm going to be a fireman, a policeman. Dave, I'm going to be a writer, and he is a writer. And even these songs. I mean, let's face it. Warner's songs, Australian Heat, Convict Street. I mean. They are iconic, I reckon. Now you probably couldn't get away with writing stuff like that in the touchy-feely world we live in. But the people that, the 40th anniversary, I was at a Mugs game, and Dave put a bit of a blurb up thanking people like myself and that for being involved. And, he's great having the idea, but you've got to have the people to help you make it work. And Howie Johnstone, Tony Durant, it was great of Dave to say that, and to see the comments, because there was no social media around back then, but to see the comments now of people saying, I got that Mugs Game album when I was 14 and it changed my life. I mean, no kidding. It's like, and some guy actually put a comment up saying, the intro to Kangaroo Hop on Free Kicks, the second live album, he said that's one of the best live intros I've ever heard to a rock song. I'm thinking, fantastic, my work here is done, and I didn't really even know how to play, But if you got heart and you got passion and you believe in what you're doing, well, you can do anything. I reckon.
agree.
And if you ain't got heart, you're going to get found out because
Yeah.
it's bullshit. You know,
Yeah.
people see through bullshit
Yeah.
pretty quickly. Australians do anyway.
No, exactly
So,
right.
yeah. So that took me. I guess that takes me up to
The Jackals.
Well, the Jackals. I got
What a band.
dragged kicking
What a
and
band.
screaming by Howard Shawcross to this band that features this guy Paul McCarthy and Phil
I always
Braden. They
love
write
watching
their own
How-
stuff, and I'm going, Howard, I
Yeah.
don't want to. I can't.
How is it
do
having
this
two
again."
Howies in the same
Yeah.
band?
Well, no, he's Howard,
Howard,
and I'm
yeah.
Howie.
Yeah.
He doesn't like being called Howie, and I don't like being called Howard.
Okay, no problem.
Funnily enough, but yeah.
But
so,
all your awesome rhythm section.
yeah, it was fantastic, and I'd played with Howard in the Elks and stuff, and we've been friends since then and before probably, but yeah, all of a sudden this band that I got sort of dragged kicking and screaming to Malaga. We used to practice down at Truganini Way there. I thought, this is a long way out, and when I got up to Truganini Way, I had to keep going. I mean, Google's going, hang on, I've gone past Malaga. Nah, Enterprise Crescents, about another 6K. Thinking, Jesus, Malaga's stretched out since the 90s. So we used to rehearse at Malaga and get some food at Malaga Munch. I remember that, if that's still there. And anyway, that band, the Jackals had a existence sort of before Howard and I, but they'd never had a really solid or regular rhythm section or bass player. So when Howard and I joined, I guess we were sort of like seasoned and ready to do it. And once I sort of started playing with those guys, I thought, shit, I didn't even want to come here, but I just love this, you know. And well, the rest is history because we ended up recording an album and touring. I sort of managed the band as well, so we did a tour over east to Sydney and Melbourne and stuff on my credit card. And,
Did you get it back?
Well, it took me about 5 years to get it back to pay it off. But, look, we had hire cars, we had food, we had everything because I had that little bit of plastic,
Yeah.
No one else did, but I did, So, yeah, the Jackals was fantastic and that was probably doing the album. We won, I think, nine rock awards, scooped the pool of the rock awards of the WA rock awards of that year, the Whammy Awards, and since then, I mean, I do, I guess, a bit like what you do. I'm a jobbing musician. I play with 3 or 4 different things. I play with my friend Nathan Gaunt in a duo. I play with a guy called Karis Thompson, who's an original Fremantle musician.
I was going to talk to you about Karis. Tell me more about Karis.
Karis is a really interesting guy. I mean, he's funnily enough, when the Jackals were going, and as I said, I used to get the gigs and stuff and manage them to the best of one's ability back then, and it was it was tough. It was like even though we'd been through a bit of great stuff in the 80s and that, well, suddenly the 90s was hard again, and you sort of had to, you get people in the door, pay a few bucks, and that's how you got your money. It was a hard gig. There wasn't people.
As hard as today?
Yeah, as hard as today.
Today's pretty hard.
Actually, no. I reckon today is harder.
Yeah. Today
is harder because at least you had, and maybe we were a bit younger then. You know what I mean. I mean, I'm 62 now, and I reckon that it's really, really tough now. There's no doubt about that. That's why. Well, I do it because I love it, but that's why I'm in 3 or 4 bands. Is because since I lost the house. Without any insurance, I mean, it's been tough. So I've had to go out and play as much as I possibly can. So I tend to play with whoever rings me up for a gig.
Yeah.
The fact is, I'm 2 hours from 2 hours from town down there. But you just got to do what you got to do, and I do it. And
you're further than me. I haven't met anyone that travels to town all the time that's further than me.
Yeah, well, I mean, I did. I had a horror run with cars last year. I had 5 cars in about 3 months, and the one that I got, an old Falcon, $800 I bought it for, and I was really wrapped with it. I thought it was great, and just got it running right. I had it for about 10 days, and then a tree fell on it in my driveway and just totaled the whole car. It was like, I've lost my house, car. Thanks a lot. Completely total. So anyway, and it was like,
sorry, I'm laughing.
No. Honestly, it was funny. It was the night before that. Phil Morgan and his wife Tori drove all the way from Swanbourne down to Yarloop to fix the lights in the car for me, because he's an auto electrician, Handley.
Phil still
in the driveway where Phil fixed those lights, in that very driveway where Phil was standing, 4 hours later at 5:30 in the morning, that car was totaled, and Phil would have been total if he's standing there. And Tori actually pointed to the 2 dead trees, and she said, "Oh, how are you? Are they safe?" And I said, "No, not really." And she said, that big one there looks like, would that hit the house? And I was going, well, I've measured it, Tori, and I reckon it might miss by a foot if it was to fall down, but that won't happen. Next morning, 4 hours later, I hear this crash at 5:55 a.m. I go out there, I can't see nothing. I'm thinking, but the landscape, it's still black. It's still nighttime. I'm thinking, hang on, the landscape, there's something missing. And I couldn't figure out what it was. Thank God I parked my car out the front. And I think, hang on, no, I didn't. Where's my car? Then I realised what was missing was the tree that was over there was now there on top of the car, and the car was covered, so I lost the car. But the next car that I got for $1,200 Magna station wagon, I've done 23,000 miles in it, K's in it, in 4.5 months.
Still going?
Yeah. But 23,000 Ks in 4.5 months, that's about 1,500 Ks a month. That's how much travelling I've done.
Same, I take my car into the mechanics nearly every 2 months for 10,000 and they go, what are you doing?
Yeah, well mine's 17,000 over the next 10,000 check, but I just haven't got enough money to do it at the moment. But it's still running and I love it.
Yeah, cool. So do you want to talk about the fire? Because you lost everything.
Yeah, no, I don't really need to talk about the fire. I just sort of brought that up to kind of draw a line under where, why I guess I'm in Yarloop. I bought a house there in 2013. Was happily just living my life until that fateful day on the 7th of January 2016 when my neighbour came up and knocked on my door about 10 o'clock at night and said, Howie, there's a fire coming, you better get out. And I'm thinking, well, hang on, I'm not going anywhere, But I was with I had a girlfriend at the time. And she said, oh, look, a fire, we better go, and I said, no, I'm not going. But anyway, so she made enough fuss for, lucky actually that she did.
So you did get out.
Left. So I left with the clothes I was standing up in and one guitar that I had, and my 3 drum kits in the house, 3 amplifiers, 6 or 7 guitars, a couple of vintage ones, 4 cars, my pride and joy, 78 F100, and just totaled, everything totaled.
All your memorabilia from Dave Warner, from
all my mum's
your Whammy
antiques
awards
that she left me, all the things that my mum after she died, and everything I had from 5 to 60 disappeared in 7 minutes. But then again, just around the corner from me, 2 guys lost their lives. And there's 182 or 181 other houses were decimated in 7 minutes. So it ain't just me, but when you got no insurance and stuff, and now I'm watching people's houses getting built, and and I'm thinking, geez, that could have been me if I just had enough to pay that insurance, But anyway, you live and learn. I'm insured to the hilt now, so I pray every night for a fire, but I think you only get one a life. You get one in your life, and mine's been and gone. Yeah,
but when you're on stage, you're on fire anyway.
Always, mate. Always. And actually, as I said, I'm coming up here tonight. Alan asked me if I had any bits and pieces from before, and as I pointed out to him, I said, look, everything I did have was in my house, and I lost everything. But I found an envelope that had a couple of little pictures of myself and my mum, and that, which was great because my mother was my biggest supporter was my mum. And so finding those was incredible. But a mate of mine who came to the gig, I did a gig at the Hilton Bowling Club last Friday night, and a mate of mine that came along happened to send me through a bit of video he took of me, me playing the last fiddle. So I thought, well, there you go. I've been playing for 45 years, and I still play now, and I'm playing better now than I ever have. So it looks a bit workmanlike because my thumb's a bit stuffed because I dropped a 4x2 on it when I'm building the house. But so I'm sort of, it looks like I'm chopping wood. But I tell you what, it's all there, and it sounds pretty good to me. So I'm proud of that, and I'm proud of what I've done.
Is that what we're going to play at the end of the interview?
Oh, I think you could, yeah. A little bit of the last bit of Whole Lot of Love live on stage at the Hilton Bowling Club, and I hope you guys out there like it. Yeah. And thanks so much for having me on the profile.
Yeah, mate, it's wonderful to listen to your story.
You might have part B sometime, but that's enough to be going on with, eh?
No, look, we're still going. You're in a movie that Ben Elton wrote, The 3 Summers.
Yeah, 3 Summers.
What was that about?
That was brilliant. It was actually 2017, so I'll give you a little bit of a backstory. Like
Please.
Ben Elton, you know Ben Elton,
Yeah.
he wrote Blackadder, a few other bits and pieces.
Very funny man.
You know, yeah, very, you know, like Queen, we were, you know, like, you know, BAFTAs. He's got it all. Right?
Yeah.
Not that he mentions it. He's a great guy, Ben.
Yeah.
Well, he happens to be married to one of the girls that was in the Jam Tarts.
Oh,
remember the Jam Tarts?
Yeah, I remember the Jam Tarts.
Well, Sophie Gare was the bass player in the Jam Tarts, and we all loved Sophie, you know, and lusted after Sophie a bit himself. And Ben sort of said, you know, when I met Sophie, the reason that I met the Jam Tarts is because when I came out here with Rick Mail as the young ones, when we got to Western Australia, things had to be different because Harry Bluck at the Musicians Union said we had to have a support band, and if we had 3 people, they had to have, if we had 4, they had to have 4. And next thing you know, we had, and we were just going, who is this guy? Who is this dinosaur? Next thing you know, it's this Jam Tarts, and I see this woman who's just the most beautiful thing I've ever seen. And he said, I was the most hated man in Perth because she fell for me, and the rest is history. And a lot of people were going, damn, Sophie's off the market now.
Yeah.
But hey, I'll tell you what, fantastic guy. Well, apparently as it goes, Sophie sort of, I sort of knew her from around Freo and stuff, but I was sort of a rock musician, and they were kind of like folky, sort of, you know, the type, you know, hippie sort of Fremantle types. But they were always like Sam LeMan, Sophie, people like that, and Lucky Ocean. I mean, they're great musicians, these
fantastic.
people, you know. So Sophie, as it turned out, how I got the job was apparently when they were talking about doing this, Ben had written this movie, and it's about a folk festival that happens at a particular place, which happened to be, if you like, Fairbridge Festival, where they have that in Pinjarra.
Yeah.
And it was done in the whole Peel region, and they got money from probably the council and stuff like that to do this movie to big up the Peel region, if you like. Now, doing it at Fairbridge, all the infrastructure's in place. So, and the story was written of 3 folk festivals that took place 1 year, 2nd year, 3rd year at the same place. So I guess it was handy to be able to shoot it like that. Well, I got called, and Howie, there's a movie going on, and Sophie, this is a friend of mine, sort of said, Sophie, you know, Ben's wife, she sort of said, is that guy Howie Johnstone still around? Is he still playing? So he said, yeah, well, I know Howie, I play in a band with him occasionally. She said, well, I'd really like him to be in this movie. I reckon he could be the drummer in the band. Okay. And the drummer in the band is, John Waters is the father. John Waters from Rush, for God's sake. John, me mate John, my new mate John. Rebecca Breeds, the girl from Home and Away, gorgeous thing she is. She was the daughter. So John Waters, Irish sort of, drinker. The daughter, Rebecca Breeds, gorgeous, playing fiddle. She never played the fiddle, but she certainly looked like she did. I knew the person that did the finger work for the fiddle up close, and it wasn't Rebecca's hand, it was this other friend of mine's hand. But anyway, so that was the band. It was like an Irish band. We were called the Warricans, W-A, Larrikins, Warricans, right? Yeah. So there was me, Ian Simpson on banjo.
Oh, Ian, we've interviewed Ian. Great.
International, world class.
Sensational.
And Blinky Bell from the Jam Tarts on bass. And myself on drums. I didn't do the drum track. Joe Whittle, some young guy. I don't even know him, but he must be related to Rick, I'd reckon, is he? Joe Whittle. Yeah, there you go. Joe Whittle did the drumming, but they reckon they needed someone that looks a bit older and crustier for this role. So up steps Howie, and I was perfect for it, they said.
Fantastic.
And so I got, $3.5 grand's worth of work out of my best mate, Ben.
I must watch it, because that's
for
where I live.
For 6 days. It's the most I've ever been paid.
You're working with the wrong people.
Yeah. So 3 Summers by Ben Elton. Put it on your must-see movie list. And
I will.
When it gets to a very poignant bit in the movie where John Waters decides to sing a song for his daughter on stage when I was just 16, or when she was just 16, and he plays guitar because he did his own guitar work. And he does that, and there's no other band accompanying, and we're all standing on stage, or, sitting at our instruments on stage. So I'm nodding along in time for about 2 minutes and 35 seconds, and that's my big moment.
Wow, fantastic.
Nodding along to John playing this guitar. So John Waters was fantastic, because I'm a ham. I love actors. I just love actors, and so I was asking him about bloody, Rush and all this stuff. And like they had Michael Caton from the bloody Castle, the Serenity. I actually upset him, so things weren't going too well, because when I went up to talk to him outside when he was gathering his thoughts and having a fag, and I must have sort of threw him a bit, and he said, "Jesus, mate, just give us a few minutes." I'm thinking, you crabby old bugger. I used to really like you. I'm not going to watch The Castle anymore. But no, he's about 75. He was brilliant. Yeah, he's brilliant. And Magnus Sabansky, the list goes on.
Yeah.
They were just fantastic. Peter Rosedorn, funny people and just great. And Ben Elton, fantastic guy.
Yeah.
And really good at what his craft. He's very good at.
He still lives here, doesn't he?
Yeah, he lives in North Fremantle, a beautiful house with his wife Sophie and kids. And he said, they still call me a pommer. I've been here bloody 35 years. But no, he's a really lovely man, and I had a lot of fun doing that. And that sort of, I think Sophie, asked if I was still around or whatever, but she'd heard of the fire and stuff like that when it turned out that how he lost his house and stuff. So it was great that she actually had thought of me for this gig, and as it turned out, it was great because that money did help to put some of the roof on the house. So I'm really appreciative of Ben and Sophie for giving me that role in that movie. So it was 3 great weeks, just rocking up and having breakfast, doing a bit of acting, having a bit of lunch, doing a bit more acting, having a bit of dinner, and then going home, getting paid.
It's a credit to you that you've got the attitude you got after losing everything, and it must have been difficult for you.
And look, it's I've learnt the meaning of the word resilience. People keep saying, "Oh, you're so resilient, Howie," but the facts are this: is that look, I wasn't insured. I owned my house. I've got an $85,000 mortgage, and to me, I was always going to go back to that block and at least clear it and try. If I had to put a tent up, I'd live in that. But as it turned out, those people were taking that house to the rubbish tip in Mandurah, and I said, "Look, can I have it?" And they said, "Yep." So I had to take this is me at 62. I had to take the asbestos off, wrap all that up and do it properly under the laws that you have to do, and cut the house in half, organised transport. It cost me $35,000. I had to raise $35,000. I didn't have a cent, so what I did is I did a GoFundMe page, thinking maybe people might know me in that, so I had to raise $30 grand and $3 grand GST for the transport, police escorts, all that sort of stuff for the 80k trip from the house from Mandurah to down the highway to Yarloop. And so I thought, look, I didn't want to. I've never asked for anything in my life. I found this whole thing, I wish I had been insured so I didn't have to ask for anything, but I had to ask for help.
But the music industry is pretty...
Well, here you go, because asking, I sort of said, look, I've got to get this $33,000 together, and I think in 9 days I'd raised over 40 grand.
Yeah.
So I'd got the money to the shift, and plus to put the cladding on the house and get the stumps, because it cost me $5 grand for Jarrah stumps to put it on. So, I couldn't believe it. It was fantastic of people to do that, And to be honest, I probably could have kept asking for money, but I had a couple of trolls say, "Oh, you should have been insured." Well, don't you think I know that? I'm not just, you can't dine out on that. Look, that's happened. You either sit in the corner and cry about it, or you get up and get going. And the tough get going, mate. That's what I am. I'm tough, I reckon.
Exactly right.
And I'm Scottish, as you know. We are tough.
Yes, most definitely. Darren Reed, what was his involvement in that? So?
Well, as soon as the fire happened, not long after the fire happened, I got a call from Darren Reed. Now, I know Darren Reed's name, but I don't think I'd ever met him, but I knew who he was, and a couple of friends of mine have played in his band or were playing in his band, and he rang me up and just said, "Look, I'm Yarloop," but he didn't even know where the place was really, but he just said, "Look, I want to do something," and he was right. He was off the mark really quickly with it, and what he did, because he knows a lot of people, and the whole Perth musical industry, actually almost the Australian music industry, because Mental as Anything, Angry Anderson, a lot of people came over and they put on this huge concert at Gloucester Park. Now, unfortunately, that was on like February the 7th, which was a month after the fire. Well, unfortunately, it was another day of 43-degree heat, unbelievable heat. And, so this concert that really could have had 20,000 there would have been lucky to get maybe 1,200 people.
Yeah, we talked to Darren.
It was terribly sad in that sense, but it was really, really hot. I played in like 3 bands on the day, I played with Dave Warner and I played with Jack Royale, and to me it's just the whole thing's a blur, but it was brilliant, and it deserved a better outcome. But unfortunately, it is what it is. But I'll tell you what, I've got a lot of time for what Darren did. He really got it. And he wasn't, you know, it wasn't anything about him. It was about trying to help the people.
I'm glad you're saying that, because he copped a little bit of stick in some quarters, and I know that's not Darren.
Well,
Darren,
I'm very disappointed to hear that, because he was. I've never met a more genuine person, and I tell you that. And I call things as I see them, and I got a lot of time for what he did, and I'll never forget the help that he gave me.
Fantastic.
And just the well, at that time it was very raw, you know, and to someone suddenly wants to help and do, I mean, you know, wow. I mean, I couldn't have done that. I was still in shock, to be honest. I'm pretty sure I was in shock even through that whole thing. It was only a month or so after. I mean, this is 3 years and 3 months and a day later, and listen to me, you can still hear how raw it is, sort of, you know. But look, it's not going to define me. It happened. I lost everything, but life goes on, and I didn't lose my life like the two unfortunate gentlemen around the corner, and I could have done. I could have just ignored the neighbour.
And is that, they stayed, obviously, those two gentlemen? Or?
Yeah, well, they did, yeah. I believe one, you know, had been drinking during the night, and he just said, I'm going to bed, and if I'm ash in the morning, well, I'll be ash with my belongings, and that's where I'm staying. So, you know, I mean, 72 is not that old, but those guys were probably an older 72, if you know what I mean. And maybe they just were, you know, I don't know. I don't know what the reason for that is, but I'm glad that I left and got out, you know.
So these days you still play every week with Jack Royale, because I heard you mention Jack Royale and the Hot Shot Playboys. Yeah, that's with Nick Shepherd and Pete Stone, John Short and Phil Morgan. Great musicians and great guys, you know, and it's a great band. So well, I still probably do a couple a month with that band. We try and probably try and do a couple a month at least, and sometimes we do, you know, 3 or 4. It just depends, because as you know, it's difficult out there and you've got to pull your own crowd and stuff like that. But we find that, like, you know, for example, the Hilton last Friday night. It's a bowling and recreation club, so people come along and they probably get cheaper drinks and stuff there. But we would have had over 120 people there on Friday night, and they just love it. So it just, and it's back to the old stomping ground for you, really. Mate, it's just fantastic. To me, it's in your backyard, really, because I've always been, you know, Fremantle, Bicton boy sort of thing. I only went down south in 2009. Just because I really wanted to change, and I thought maybe I might buy something down there, because I'd sold my apartment I had in town, and was looking. I couldn't really afford property up here, so I thought I might be able to get something in a country town or something, and I went and looked after a farm of 30 acres in Coolup, which is just near Waroona, and from there I was driving into Yarloop one day and found a house, and I thought, 125,000, I can afford this, So the rest is history. Would you ever live in the city again? If I won lotto, I'd probably, you know, because then I'd be able to afford the house and that I want. But I'm a pensioner and that these days, and, you know, and the band money, you know, that might buy me a few nails and bits and pieces for the house, but it's not going to make me rich. I don't expect it to. So I'd say no to that. And in fact, not just because of finance, but because I love it where I am. I really do. You know, I love the serenity, as Michael Caton would have said. That's why I asked you, because I'm in the same boat. Oh, wow. Like, I hear you're living south, aren't you? But I could never live back in the city. No. When I come up here, I start to get sort of stressed from about, you know, just out near Coburn. Just on the freeway. Just around near Coburn. Stuck on a car park for 20 minutes. Like, hang on, where did all these people come from? Where did all these cars? Oh, there must be an accident. Then you realise it's not an accident, it's just the way it is. It's Perth, yeah, funny. Right. So, okay, let's move sideways a bit. Can I just say, you're looking wonderful, Gary. Am I? I mean, I've known you for a long time, and you still scrub up beautifully. Thank you so much. And the way you do this show is a real credit to you, Al, Mark, Phil, all of us here. It's a credit to you. Thank you, mate. You've had too much to drink. Yeah. I'm a teetotaler, mate, so it couldn't be right. Been smoking your fags, though. They haven't got anything funny in them, have they? Oh, of course not. No. I left a little something in your packet. Thank you. Now, if you're going to buy a shoe, you want to get an Italian one that fits you nice wide and has got that length and that colour. And look at him. Oh, my God. Okay, let's do this. Your earliest influence by a musician or band?
Oh, well, my brother Johnny.
Beatles?
Well, yeah, Beatles, then Stones for sure.
Yep.
And see, I'll just give you one little bit of the Howie Johnstone story. As I said, coming out here from Scotland, well, my brother Johnny, from my age 6 to 16, that 10 years, the first 10 years in Australia, well, Johnny was the oldest kid in the house. There was, my other brother was only 10, I was sort of 7. Well, every day for the next 10 years, Johnny used to put an album on every day, and he had every record that, Beatles, Stones, everything, and then, the band, Roland Kirk, jazz, reggae, everything. Johnny was onto everything. So I realised that I used to credit Johnny with my musical ability, but then I've realised as I've got older that my musical ability came from my dad, from his genes, because my dad was a musician. Now,
he was a drummer as well?
No, my dad was he played piano, accordion.
Okay.
Actually, he played buttons on both sides.
Yeah.
And he used to write, he had his own band, John Johnson's Scottish Dance Band, and he used to write, believe it or not, there was drums, bass, a piano player, and 3 accordions.
Wow. Yeah.
Now, my dad used to write, he played by ear, but he used to write parts for the 3 accordions. His cousin and his brother played the other 2 boxes, right? And I've had people, when I've gone back to Scotland 20 years ago, 15 years ago, I've had people come up to me in the street and say, we used to travel miles to see your father's band in the snow, because the Johnston Brothers band with the Johnson, John Johnston Scottish Dance Band were the best band in the land. And these are people crying, as they're saying, talking about my dad's music. So that's where I reckon that's my earliest influence, the genes from my dad. But I was schooled by my brother Johnny by putting music on and what Johnny liked. I mean, because as I say, Johnny had his finger on every sort of music, and people used to ask Johnny's advice about things, and he was in numerous bands. He was in, bands that go back before our time, like jug bands, like when jug bands like Mud could pull 1,500 people to a gig. This is back in 1968, 69. So my schooling was from my brother Johnny for a good 10 years until he left the household when he was 17 or 18. Well, then that's when I started playing my own records. But up until then, everything I'd listened to, I reckon, was from my brother, and it was, gee, I'm just getting into this Stones, it's great. And the next thing you'd come home and there'd be a jazz record. I'm like, what the hell's this? Or a reggae, it's like, God, he's changed, But Johnny was just eclectic, and he had, as it turns out, Johnny was a member of the Beatles fan club and stuff. He just did have the little wallet with the number 166 or whatever, Beatles fan club from 1961. I mean, so and because watching Ready Steady Go, Top of the Pops, when I was 3, 4, 5 years old, seeing the Rolling Stones in 1962, and I mean, they're my earliest influences, and funnily enough, I still love them now.
Yeah,
the
crazy?
Beatles. The Stones are still playing, for God's sake, but the Beatles, in that 6 or 7 years, look at the legacy that they've got,
massive.
It's magnificent,
So have you had any other jobs throughout your life?
Well, yeah. I mean, I've been a forklift driver, I've been a crane driver, I've done demolition. I've, because I can drive anything on tracks, wheels, or, water or land. So I've always been good at operating machines, So that's what I do. I'm a plant operator.
Good. Favourite band of all time?
God, one band that'd be very difficult. I mean, I must admit, I've always loved Australian music, and I've always been champion of Australian music. And I always said, because I mean, I met Bon Scott back in 1974 when I first went to over east as a 17-year-old with my $150 Holden that I bought in the back of shacks in Fremantle. And I went with another guy, and he was Bon Scott's cousin. I was 17 and he was 22, and we worked as forklift drivers together. And one week we got our pay and decided to jump in my $150 HD and head to Melbourne and Sydney, because me mate had just, the guy I went with, Bon's cousin, he'd just come back from there and he reckoned it was great. And I was thinking, I'm 17, I just got my licence, I'm going. So we got our pay that night and off we went. Well, we got to South Australia, and of course we were sort of out of money and that, and my mate says, oh, look, we'll go and see me cousin Ronnie. He lives here. I think he's with a girl. And So we drive into this suburb and pull up in the driveway and, oh, there he is. Out comes his cousin Ronnie, and I'm looking at this guy going, do you know your cousin's Bon Scott? Because, I mean, I'd seen the Valentines, and ACDC didn't exist, you know.
That's right.
But I said, your cousin's Bon Scott from the Valentines. He says, oh, yeah, some people call him Bon.
Well, we call him Ronnie.
Yeah, we call him Ronnie, and he does do a bit of music, and this guy bounds up to the car, ponytail, bib and brace overalls. I'm Bon. And, mate, what a meeting that was. He found us a job. First beer in South Australia he bought us. He said there's 2 beers in South Australia, Southwark and West End, and they're both shit. They're not like Emu Export or Swan Lager. But here you go. Have one of these. So Bon bought us our first beer, got us a job, stuff. And you know what? Even though he was staying in the garage at his girlfriend's parents' place, he ended up marrying this woman, but he was living in the garage. He wouldn't let us go to a bed and breakfast or that. He said, oh, no, you're Scottish, you're staying here.
Yeah.
So we had to send a tent up, sort of over the car, over the HD car, in the driveway, and we stayed there for a week. And it was only like, we tried to leave a couple of times, Bon wouldn't hear of it. I don't know what the woman's parents thought. They probably thought, who are these people, you know? But he wouldn't hear of it. But one week, when Bon, I think he'd gone to work, because he worked at the wharf, I said to my mate Langy, Bon's cousin, I said, hey, look, mate, you know, Bon's great, but we've got to get out. This isn't fair, you know, we're stepping over people, and this just isn't right, you know. And so we kind of, and he was very upset that we'd left.
What a great story.
He understood. It was fantastic. And so the next thing, as we, not the moral of the story, but the upshot of this story is, about 6 or 7 weeks later, when we got enough money to move on to Melbourne, Bon knew that was what we were doing. You know, we were moving on. We'd only just stopped there for a while, and he was so great to us. And on the day we took off, we'd sort of seen him a couple of days before, said our goodbyes, and then we drove. Now, when you leave Adelaide, there's a place about 50 k's out or 50 miles out called Murray Bridge.
Murray Bridge,
right? Now, back in those days, the pubs didn't used to open on a Sunday, so you had to be a bona fide traveller, they called it.
Yeah.
Now, on a Sunday, if you were a bona fide traveller and you were 50 miles out of the main city, you could then get alcohol. So 50 miles out, Murray Bridge, we stopped there, because our drug of choice back in those days was alcohol. So me and me mate, we bought a gun each in South Australia, because you didn't need a licence for a rifle, and we drove to Melbourne with the rifle hanging out each window, shooting car signs and drinking piss all the way. Now, as we got out of Murray Bridge, I'm sort of, what I used to do, wherever we got, I used to buy a newspaper, because I didn't know what's going on. So I went to the newsagent, got the newsagent. I sent Langy, Bon's cousin, into the pub to get our quota, which you could get 6 cans each, so a dozen cans. So I'd go back, and we ended up 2 dozen cans, 2 guns, 2 gun cans. Off we go. Now I'm reading the paper. Langy's driving. I read the paper and get to the end sports and chuck it down on the seat between us as we're driving along. And I just sort of looked down at it, and it's the back page, the sport page, but down the side it's got the stop press, the late news, and there's a picture of Bon Scott with singer badly hurt in car accident. In motor accident. And I just looked at Lang. He said, "Stop, mate! Stop the car." And he's going, "What's wrong? You got no ammo?" No, just stop the car. So he pulls the car over, and I said, "Look," and it's his cousin Bon, and it looked like he was gonna die, you know. So turned the car around and went back to Royal Adelaide Hospital, and when Bon was in intensive care. You know, this guy we'd seen 2 days before to say goodbye. All of a sudden we go into this intensive care, and there's a guy basically bald with tubes and stuff in him, and his girlfriend, Mrs. there crying over him, and and her folks sort of there, and so we stayed there for 3 days, and he was in an induced coma, and they didn't know if he was. I don't know if it was induced. I think it was. What had happened? Bon used to ride a motorbike, a little 350 like Suzuki, and go to rehearsals and stuff like that. Well, on this night, a bit of rain in Adelaide, he'd been to a rehearsal. I don't think it was with ACDC or anything, might have just been with a few mates. He'd been to a rehearsal, and he was coming back and going home, and he came around the traffic lights, and there'd been a prang there earlier, and they hadn't cleaned the road at all. And as he came around the road, on his bike, still in the bike, and he hit the traffic pole and just rode off the traffic pole on his bike and himself. And we were there for 3 days waiting for him to regain consciousness, and he never did. And they ended up calling his mum and dad in Australia and bringing them over because it looked like he was going to pass away. Now, next thing you know, his wife or his partner sort of said, look, we don't know what's going to happen, and it's fantastic you guys stay, but we know you were on your way to Melbourne. That you should, he'd want you to continue no matter what happens to Bon. And and he'd made a real big, big impression on me, and he was my mate's cousin sort of thing, and really felt for this guy. Well, the history of the rest is that, we get to Melbourne. We ended up doing sort of 6 months in Pentridge, but that's another story. But when I got back home, that was in 1975, and I remember turning the TV on, and ABC, and there's this new show on.
Called
1975,
Countdown.
it was called Countdown, and the first band that were on there,
AC/DC.
And there is that guy that I saw lying dead in the hospital with a schoolgirl dress on and Platt's doing Baby Please Don't Go.
Yeah.
I just thought, he's alive. And I just looked at this band and I thought, this band are going to be the biggest band in the world. And I used to say to Warner, have you heard this band ACD? You should hear this band. And he said, when I played it, he said, they're just a pub band. I go, mate, they're going to be the biggest band in the world. And I was right.
So 10 minutes ago I asked you your favourite band of all time was, right?
Yeah.
You can't talk under wet concrete.
Yes.
But so it's AC/DC.
Oh no, well they had a big influence on me, obviously, and that. But bands like the Dingoes, Australian bands, like Lobby Lloyd and the Coloured Balls, Billy Thorpe and the Aztecs. I mean, I sort of like rock music, and I'm, to me, I class myself as a musician. I'm a drummer. I play drums, but it's always about the song for me. It's about it's about how it comes across. So whatever it takes, that's what you do.
Yeah.
It's not about, I got a paradiddle in that fill. I mean, I still haven't heard somebody do a double stroke roll on a pop song that I like on the radio. You wouldn't know. It's just. It's like Harry and, you talk about Vanda and Young. I like what Vanda and Young do. They used to walk around the studio, as John Paul Young says, with a piece of tape around their neck, and that was the drummer. Because, most drummers wanted to put flourishes in. No, they just wanted you to go boom, chip, boom, that's it. It's about the song. It's not about you or that. It's about how you mesh these things and collaborate, and it's about the song. That's the most important thing. So, I can't give you one band, Gary, because there's a lot of influences in my life.
It's okay.
And,
it's a great story you told.
Oh,
so I'm glad to have found that out.
Thank you.
That's a really good story.
You didn't know that?
No.
Oh.
No.
I've told you something tonight.
Mate,
I feel great.
It's fantastic. Because they're one of my favourite bands.
Honestly, they were, and I got to see them playing at the Bondi Lifesaver and places like that, and Rose Tattoo, Rose Tattoo are one of my favourite bands, mate. No one can rock like Rose Tattoo. The first album of Rose Tattoo, that whole thing, just gold, I reckon.
Yeah, great. So, if you were stranded on a deserted island, right, what album would you take with you? You can only take one album.
Yeah, I'd probably have to have something a bit lighter. One album.
One album. That's a 30-second answer, this one.
One album. I remember buying the first single I bought when I was 6 years old at Woolworths in Edinburgh, and it was Joe E. Brown playing Spanish guitar, and he had this acoustic. And when I came out to Australia, I brought a guitar with me, and I was only 6. So you'd think you'd have other important things to bring, but my brother brought his drum kit, I brought a guitar, and my other brother brought a guitar, and he didn't play it, but I used to play mine. But I still became a drummer because I was influenced by my brother. But, I was always interested in that. But I think it was more about the look of that Spanish type acoustic guitar done by this guy, Joe E. Brown. I meant to look it up before I came here so I could get it right. But I remember it's Joe E. Brown, and I bought that single when I was 6 years old with my mum at Woolworths in Edinburgh.
That's what you take?
No, that's just the first thing I bought. Sorry, that's another story. But look, I don't know. I need more time, and you haven't got that time tonight. But
that's
I can give you an answer. I can email you.
Email me an answer, and then I can let people know in a future episode.
Maybe we should wrap it up.
No. Look, do you have any unfulfilled ambitions?
Oh golly. Well, see, all my ambitions have sort of been put on hold since, I don't want to mention really the fire, but I guess I'm building this house, so my ambition is to, just get it sort of finished and just start living my life again, but things are looking up because every day I get that little bit closer to the completion, I guess, of it. So, my life is starting to, get back to some form of normality,
I could ask you the next question.
That's enough about me. Let's talk about you.
No.
What do you think of me?
I've always thought you were a very good drummer.
Oh, thanks a lot.
And a very nice person.
Yeah. So, I've thought the same about you. Not the drummer part, but nice person.
Thank you.
For sure.
Not everyone would agree with you. Sorry, what was that, Al?
I think he's a survivor.
A survivor, yeah.
I'm a resilient survivor and a Scotsman.
How can anyone contact Howie if they want to help him?
Yeah. Okay, that's a good question. If anyone wants to help Howie, how can they contact you, Howie?
Well, I guess I'm down in Yarloop, just 400 metres from the police station. So, and it's just off Johnson Road, so you can't forget that. It's named after me, seeing I'm the mayor of Yarloop now. No, I'm just kidding. No, I just live just off Johnson Road in Yarloop, and you can't miss me. Just ask anyone in the area if Howie's around, and if anyone wants to come down and give me a hand or put a few dollars into the pot, thank you. It'd be much appreciated.
So have you still got the GoFundMe thing?
No, I don't anymore, but you never know.
Have you got an email address or a phone number or something? Sorry? We can put it up? We can put it up
maybe, if you want,
Why not?
Yeah, why not? But as I said, I've sort of stopped asking for help because it's over 3 years now, and people are probably just thinking, it's all done and dusted. But if you got insurance money, it's all done and dusted. But when you haven't, believe me, it isn't. So, but I'm really grateful. I mean, I'm so grateful to have the house that I've got and the work in front of me, which I didn't really want. I thought I'd be just sitting on my veranda at around 62, watching the cows out in the paddock. But okay, I'm building the house, but it makes me a better me, so, and I'm really, really glad I've got the health on my side at the moment that I can do this stuff. I don't even know how I know how to do this stuff, but I've done a lot of demolition, so I know how to pull things apart. Now I just have to stick them back together. It's a little bit different, but it's the same concept, so and never say die.
So Howie, what would you put on your gravestone?
I came, I saw, I conquered. No, I thought, here lies Howie Johnstone, who put his heart into every single thing that he did, whether it was building his house, playing his drums, or loving his mother.
Yeah.
I've tried to be the best me I can ever be, and that's all anyone I think can ever do. But I've regrets. I probably got a few.
Too few to mention.
Too few to mention. There's a song in that.
Yes.
But no, seriously, I mean, I think that life is one thing I do know, and I've learnt this a long time ago. But life really, it's all about the journey. It's not about I'll put that away till later, till I do that. You do that, you never get around to it. You've just got to enjoy the journey itself. And so this, okay, it's tough. It's been different, but you know what? I've met some incredible people that have helped me put my house back together, and they are now like firm friends of mine. I mean, I couldn't have done it without them. It's been really great, and they've been able to just come up and, do you need a hand here, Howie? Do you want a hand with that wood? You know what I mean? Things like that. So, it doesn't take much to help someone, I guess, like that. And people have been fantastic because there's still a lot of people, I guess, doing it tough. I do it tough everywhere. But
true. It is about the journey because you can't take anything with you.
No, you can't.
And relationships is what life is all about. And just being happy.
Yeah. Well, the fire, for example. I mean, like I said, 1 minute you're just living your life in your house with all your stuff around and your telly and your records and your furniture and stuff, and then the next day all that's gone completely. I mean, you've lost stuff you can't even remember that you had when you had it there. So how important is it? It seems, terrible at the time, but you know what? It's important that you're alive and that you come out the other side, that you can actually start again. I'm really glad. I mean, I wasn't looking forward to it, but the journey, 3 years and 3 months, as I say, I've met some incredible people, and I won't say I wouldn't change it for the world. Of course I'd change it. I'd change it by having insurance or, you know, changing it. But no, in the end of the day, it is what it is. And look, I've survived, mate, and I've got a lot of friends, you know.
Yeah.
I was really pleasantly surprised when I did the GoFundMe thing, and, you know, thinking, well, people care, you know, well, maybe they don't care at all, but people really do care. A lot of them, they don't know how to build a house with put a piece of wood together, but they've got $20 or $50. Howie, can we give you, you know, oh, look, I don't want to take you, mate. Well, Howie, you need it. You know, I had to, you know, really, I had to sort of, I guess, just, you know, put my hands up and say, yeah, I do need some help, you know, and it was hard.
There's nothing wrong with that.
I know, Gary, but honestly, it was tough to do that, you know, because I've just never.
Because you're so proud.
Yeah, well, yeah, and also I've done benefits for people over the years. You know, we all do those things, and you kind of never think it's going to be you know, but all of a sudden when it was, I was really, really, really rapt to see the people that, like, you know, I look at that concert for Pecco. That man there, I mean, I'm still picking up tools and stuff. Pecco gave me a car. I lost all my vehicles. Pecco, who I only knew as a drummer from Perth, but I didn't really know him as a mate or anything. Well, he became my best friend. Pecco, a couple of weeks after that
generous man.
He had a car for me. I came up. I think he put $500 in my pocket cash. He gave me the car, and he said, "Howie, in the boot of this car, it's loaded with tools and screws and stuff." And he said, "You're not going to want to look at them now. You won't need them now." He said, "But I tell you what, mate, you're going to need them." Yeah. And I tell you, to this day, I'm still picking up stuff that Pecco gave me. And for him to lose his life like he did, I'm gutted by that, to be quite frank, because his involvement, like Darren, the way Darren came, you know what I mean? They don't want anything from themselves. It's not about them. It's about helping somebody, you know? Yeah. And it's not like they were my best mates or anything, but they might as well have been what they did. It was really quite moving. So I can't say enough about the friends that have helped me at Yarloop, and just in general, it's been fantastic, man. I've got no complaints with that, you know? It's been wonderful.
You've humbled me, Mr. Johnstone.
Oh, no, how so?
Oh, just your honesty and your integrity and just how you conduct your life.
Oh, thanks very much, mate. Put it there.
Thank you for coming in. Really, really appreciate it. And you can tell some stories.
Yeah, well, I've got a few more, and I didn't want to take up too much of your time, but yeah.
Well, you keep saying finish, but it's normally him.
Well, what do you reckon?
Oh, fantastic, mate. You're a wonderful human being. So thank you so much.
Like I say, I'd like to thank you for having me up here, and I really appreciate your interest in my life and my story. It's great.
Yeah, well, you're a part of everything that happened, and you deserve to sit here and tell your story of your journey.
Yeah, that's true. And I guess, you know, we do go back a long way, us guys. And, you know, Mark, coming in and seeing Mark, I haven't seen Mark for probably 40 years. And when ProCopy was in...
He hasn't changed, has he?
Hasn't changed at all. In fact, he looks younger and a bit more gorgeous, you know. That platinum blonde look's just got me going. But no, look, I'm really impressed by this whole thing, and I'm so glad I came up to do it. I really am.
Well, we're going to watch a clip now. Thanks for joining us, Mr. Howie Johnstone, or Alistair, as some people call him.
Alistair Forrest Johnston. As my mum said, there's never been a poor Alistair, and I didn't want to say Chrissy. Maybe there's a first time for everything. No. But you know what? When she said poor, she wasn't necessarily talking money. When she said poor, she meant rich in spirit, like, and I am, you know. I got a heart, mate, and as long as you got a heart and you're honest, go about things like that, you can't go far wrong. That's my motto for life, really.
Good on you, Howie. Thank you so much. Check out this drum thing that we're going to put on, and thanks for joining us. We'll see you next time.
Cheers.
ProCopy, we can transfer audio to CD, make CD, DVD and Blu-ray copies, transfer video to DVD, Blu-ray or HD, digitise slides and photos and supply custom USBs. You can see more details at procopy.com.au or call us on 08 9375 3902 for more information.